Hello everyone. Hi Emilia. How are you doing today?
Hey Alex, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm recovering from a flu, but I think today is kind of an excellent day because I feel way better.
That's great to
Okay.
hear.
Yeah, well it is. So hello everyone one more time. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Search of the Week podcast. So today we discuss what goes in terms of ranking higher for specific search terms as usual, right? So that is our main topic. And the search term that we are going to discuss today is link building services. Well, being honest, I'm extremely excited about this topic. So as usual, I'm your host, Alex Tachalvo, the founder of Digital Olympus. And let me introduce you to today's podcast guest. So Emilia Korczynska. Did I pronounce it well?
That's right. Well, I just realized I've been mispronouncing your last name all the time.
So that is thanks to Maria, actually. She lives in Poland, so she helped me, actually. She sent me it. So I'm not So thank you, Maria, for doing that. Okay. Emilia, the head of marketing at Userpilot, sorry. A product growth platform helping product teams deliver personalized in-app experience to increase growth metrics at every stage of the user journey. She comes from content marketing background, loves experimenting with content and SEO, and building content ops for her growth marketing team. Emilia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm a bit intimidated because your previous guests were like my absolute SEO gurus. So Kevin
Oh no,
Indig
no.
and
I think well, being honest, knowing you for quite some time on LinkedIn, actually following you, reading your thoughts, and it was a pure pleasure meet you in person in Poland at conference, right? In Poland at Kulturne. Well, I'm not going to pronounce it well, so let's say it's cultural so
yeah.
conference. And so, no, I'm extremely excited to have a conversation today with you, and especially the topic is so close and dear to my heart. But before that, I want to ask you something. Um, so even though you currently live in Great Britain, right? But originally you're from Poland.
That's right.
So I've recently been there, and I tried one of Poland's signature dishes, right?
Mm.
So it's basically dumplings, but you call it, well, that's where I might fail, pierogi, right?
Pierogi. Right. Your
Pierogi.
Polish is really good. It like
Okay. Okay. So now I want to ask you something. Basically, I tried different tastes and they are extremely delicious. And I want to ask you about, different things. Anton, can you please show us the image? Because without the image, we can't really. Okay, perfect. So here's the question: which pierogi filling is not traditional for the Polish cuisine?
Oh, I think a potato and cheese. That's your pierogi, isn't it?
Okay,
Oh no,
okay.
wait, sweet potato. Oh gosh, I failed. I didn't notice the last one.
Are you
But
really from Poland, or you're kind of right now, more kind of
that's a tricky question
that
though.
was a
It's
transition
a
more to the
tricky
UK. So next
it's
time
a
we have to
tricky
ask you about
question.
the UK dish.
I'm objecting, like two answers were actually yeah, not Polish fillings, but yeah. It's just a bit like with link building, right?
Yeah, it is. It
There
is.
isn't
It's
just one
always
correct
like,
answer.
well, there might be, there is the answer that kind of fits everything. It depends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It
yeah,
depends.
exactly.
It depends. Okay. So since our today topic is link building services, right? So I want to start with something more on a general note, right? So more about the link building landscape, because there are always a lot of ongoing conversation about, whether link building is important, not important, less important, whatever it is, right? What do you think? Whether it's still kind of a thing or it's no longer so important? So, how do you feel about link building on a general note as a part of SEO activities? I would say, right?
Yeah, I still think it's very important, but it kind of has different importance at different stages. So I'm kind of looking at link building from the perspective of growing a SaaS company whose, lead gen motion is primarily based on the organic channel, right? So the majority of leads are coming through inbound, through organic and the SEO channel. So at the beginning, link building was super important, and kind of at the end, it's still very important. But there is a time where, when you have a limited budget and you need to juggle content creation and link building, I would say you can kind of redirect your resources to content creation over link building for a while. And then where you're kind of coming back to re-optimize and update your content, when you're, for instance, losing positions in SERPs against your competitors, that's also a very good time to start like reinvesting in link building. So, that's kind of my SaaS perspective on things. Yeah, and it also depends on the budget. If I had like all the budget in the world to spend on content, I would be investing in link building throughout.
Yeah, I would say the following: without content, links are not really working well. So if you don't really have, I would say, a content marketing process that is really happening right consistently, which is very important, then I would say you don't really need links. So because that is not going to change anything, because Google nowadays looks at at the number of new content that you can publish, right? Well, let's say like per month in any time frame, right? And also whether it's happening consistently, right? Months over months or not. Otherwise, links are great, right? They might kind of, I don't really know, make you happy. I don't know, whenever you get links maybe from Forbes or something like that, that might you feel proud, whatever it is, right? Some kind of emotional factors might be involved. But, in terms of significant changes in your SEO positions and so on, I don't think so, right? So links, they're kind of a part of the very kind of holistic approach to it. So when you firstly, right, optimize your pages, create content, also publish content on a regular basis, and then you add links.
As you said, I think on your talk, right, at the conference where we met, you have to build links to something, right? So you need to have content, and the content needs to be optimized for particular keywords, right? So it just makes sense, because then you're driving qualified traffic that is searching for a particular term because they have like the commercial intent or informational intent if you're nurturing them a bit, right? So that's why you need to have a content before you build links, and then you can basically adjust the kind of links you are going to get to the type of content, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That is, I kind of, I couldn't agree more with that, just because, you firstly need to kind of build a foundation, and then you can make it, better. That is something like, with building a new house, right? You have to, set up some basement, you have to set up walls, and then you can kind of, do a nice interior inside it, rather than firstly kind of, I don't know, design a nice interior and then kind of trying to figure out how to fit it to how that you haven't yet built, in fact. So, that is basically the logic. And by the way, by looking at the current state of things, right, by the keyword link building services, because that's the keyword that we are discussing today, we see actually that the demand, right, and here is basically this graph. In Ahrefs, it shows basically the trend, right, in terms of how the users actually, like, whether they look for this search term more or less, right, in a specific time frame. And we can see that starting from like like, a few years ago, it was like more like on a flat rate, but it was a quite increase in demand and interest, right, in link building further starting from 2019, and it's still kind of, I think, developing, right? So
Yeah,
that is
it's
quite interesting.
definitely, it's not exponential growth, it's quite gradual, and you can see these
Yeah.
like jumps and troughs. And I think it's just like the SEO market in general responding to different hypes, right? So every now and again, you hear some SEO guru or content guru, so especially people from the opposite end of the spectrum that are selling content, say that no, links are not necessary. You can just achieve the same results with just high quality content. And like some people believe in, maybe even Google publishes something on the Search Central blog that, like, oh, this tactic or that tactic is not valid anymore or is getting penalized by the new update. So there is probably like a dip in demand. But then every now and again, people still learn that, yes, links are still a very important ranking factor. And then, the interest spikes again. Someone else publishes a case study and basically the new tactic is discovered, for instance, and it spikes again. So there is a gradual, increase in interest over time.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
always like
think,
ups and
yeah,
downs, I would
yeah,
say, like, spikes, and then it's it's the same with by the way, artificial intelligence, right? All those
yeah.
things that kind of we see right now. So it's going to be kind of, the hype was kind of going, kind of, we see that it's kind of very, very trending, and then most probably it's going to go slowly down, just because it's no longer so important, right? The kind of, something new happened, I would say, right? So it's always like that, right? So things are kind of evolving, I would say.
Yeah, but the market is maturing, right? So it has moved from being kind of fringe and, black, grey, hattish kind of thing that people would not
Mhm.
openly talk about to kind of a more legitimate branch of SEO. So I think that's why the increase is also, like, you can see it from around 2019, where a lot more
Mhm.
agencies like yours that are reputable, that are doing high quality work, have started to appear, and like it stopped being that kind of clandestine, stealthy thing that you would do, like, oh, let's buy some links in Fiverr. So yeah, I think it's gaining recognition. If done well, it's a legitimate branch of SEO.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, talking about the current state of things, in terms of, I would say service providers, agencies that we have on the market, right? Because I receive from 10 to 15 emails, um, per day normally, from various link senders. I guess I'm not really special, just because it's written that I'm the founder of a link building agency. So, the interest in me is maybe quite high, just because they want to kind of, resell things. They think that, my clients might be interested in this, whatever it is. So I kind of, receive, those emails. Also the same happening on LinkedIn, right?
Mm.
um but that is okay, right? So people are trying to sell their stuff in different ways. um you know I rather receive something decent, even including pitches. By the way, I've recently received quite a nice speech in terms of what's written there. It was, more or less not hyper personalized, but it was, I could kind of, all in all, I can say that it was quite okay. But in the subject line, they added the wrong website.
Yeah, I get that too.
I was like,
Literally, yeah.
I was like, okay, I would even consider maybe answering you, but then it's like, what is that? What is that?
Or the timeless
So,
classic, dear sir.
well, it was quite professional in
Hmm.
terms of the structure and the idea, but at the end of the day, it failed. But it's okay, right? So because you have to do most probably a lot of email outreach in order to nail the process, more or less. So it's going to happen, even like, it was happening with us when we were starting up the process, because you can't really control all the elements because there are quite a lot of elements there. But circling back to my kind of, main idea about the quality of services, do you feel like in terms of the pitches that you receive, because basically you work and, pitches of potential agencies, including, right, potential vendors, do you receive something better because you represent a services cloud solution, right? So there might be some other vendors, some other agencies that might be interested, like, in working with you, right? So potentially, for sure.
I wish. So,
Okay.
I feel the market is still very nascent, despite becoming, a little bit more mature. It's still quite nascent. So let's put it this way. It's not like I'm getting a lot of professional pitches from agencies. I would love to, because I was actually in the market recently. I was looking for an agency, and the problem was I had some connections, obviously. I didn't think of you at that point. I must admit,
that is okay.
but
that is okay. At least you know us, so that is completely
yeah,
fine.
But you know how it is. Sometimes, like, you just forget that there is something like in front of you. And I was looking actively, and I was kind of doubling into my network and connections. And I must say that I haven't ever received a pitch that's, apart from the obvious, the hustlers, the individual link builders, and then people that I do respond to, so like guest posts from partners in like the similar industry or like very similar niche. These are pretty good because they are very, very highly domain relevant. But the agencies, it's all so transactional. Like, I don't think anyone, even in the sales process, has bothered to do any like analysis on our needs. Yeah, like one agency a bit, and that kind of swayed me towards them. But I haven't actually received any feedback on the targets that I have selected and the number of links that I wanted. And it all felt like there was literally no difference between the agencies that I was evaluating in terms of quality of service. It just sounded like there are slight differences in terms of price and maybe in terms of like the guaranteed DR or traffic from, the website that they're building links from. So these were literally the only differentiators. I would talk to someone and they would say something like, okay, it's $350 per link, minimum DR 70, minimum order volume 30 links per month. How many do you want? Every single experience.
But I understand. But I guess, as for me, right, if I were kind of a potential client, right, and if I know that, I'm like Userpilot, right, so I'm in a good fit, right, so I have the right content, I have, everything is kind of more or less in a good shape. I would say what I would love to see, right, is a strategic approach. So more like, instead of talking about DRs, and so on, because, more or less, if you are capable of delivering clinics from good websites, right, so you are more or less at that level, and most probably you are more or less considering people at that level, let's say, right, that can deliver, especially for sure you are receiving different pitches, but the one that you were more or less kind of choosing as, the one that you want to continue conversation with, they were more or less at the same level. And the next thing, as for me, and I think it's quite hard actually to deliver this, is to tell a client, a potential client, okay, so the next step will be actually trying to understand what we need to do in order to reach some significant progress in terms of rankings by the page that you are interested in.
Exactly, the goals. So I don't think I have had a list of goals that I was coming to them with, but I have to handle so many different things in the marketing department, especially it's growing and we're like expanding into say, new channels, we're doing more demand gen initiatives and whatnot. I don't have the time to inspect every single of my competitors' link profile and try to deduce basically, okay, like, doesn't make sense for us to build 20 links to this page that Ahrefs is suggesting, or is it an overestimation, or is it underestimation? Like, what should be the average DR? Like, how strong the links need to be for this specific URL to jump up in search, because this is our top converting URL. Yeah, it would have taken me hours and hours, but I don't have a process because I don't do it at scale. I don't do it for my clients. So I didn't need to develop a process for that. That would allow me.
Sure, it's understandable.
So that's why I'm outsourcing. The same with the actual relationships or approving the links, right? Like, after I have sort of discussed my needs with the agency, I shouldn't need to have to deal with the link builders themselves and going into the spreadsheet and comment on, the links that they're building, like approve them, and then say, oh, well, guys, this is this website isn't really what we agreed on, right? So
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess, the thing that, you kind of mentioned at the very beginning, the way kind of approaching this, looking at kind of estimating the gaps, also looking at pages, making sure that actually they are matching the current SERP, because that is also what might happen, right? You want to rank for, you have this page in mind, you want to rank for this keyword, but the current SERP might be something different, right? And also that is exactly what we do. So basically you start everything by creating a plan. Then we kind of also sometimes, because, some clients, they are not really aware of the current competition, and we uncover that we need to build, 200 links, and they are kind of, no, we don't want to consider this page. We would better choose something else, right? And so on and so forth. And I think it's very important also to ensure that links that you are building, right, they're actually bringing some results, and that's what we do as well. But that is more like a very strategic approach. It's kind of, and it's quite hard. We've been actually very, very struggling when it comes to moving from a mindset of, okay, I give you these links from this website with this DR, all those conversations, and moving to a stage when you are not really talking about DRs, because there is no point about talking about them, because you've already set up a strategy, right? And the strategy is kind of happening beforehand, everything, because the current competition actually tells you what kind of website you need to build links, what kind of website you need to consider to deliver links. So that is more or less, right, the biggest difference between, I think, agencies on the market, right? The one that kind of guide you, right, from the stage when you just have a need of link building, and kind of making sure that you're going to get, real results, and the one that are just, that just selling links.
Exactly. So this is the difference between being outcome focused, and the clients want outcomes. They don't just want outputs. So just pure links. So,
I wouldn't agree with you. We have, we have a lot of clients that don't really want us to tell them what to do. So they tell us, look, we are SEO specialists, not really clients, because we don't really work with those companies, because there is no sense, but, potential clients, and some conversations, they are kind of, I find them very challenging, because I don't really know what to tell them, because they tell me, look, I just need those 30 links, and that is very much it.
Well, that
is very interesting.
Yeah, making your life harder, because then you kind of may have a difference of opinion, and you're probably like, okay, I'm just going to take this client and do it, or maybe I'm not going to work with this client because it's going to be more trouble than it's worth. So I get that there are people like that, but the reason why the vast majority of in-house teams want to outsource this process is because they don't really have the capacity to create that strategy with the level of care and expertise that is required to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Let's circle back a little bit to search engine results, right? Because that is the main,
So
actually,
yeah.
the main kind of point of interest for our listeners as well. Even though I can talk about, links and, link building services on a general note, I think it might go and go. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about top 10 results, right? About
Hmm.
the changes that we see here. And I think on a general note, it's quite stable, right? So the domains, right, they're not really changing
Changing.
much. Yeah. So do you think, as in your opinion, right? Um, is it an indicator of additional difficulty in terms of entering this niche? Or how you are going to actually translate this, right, to, in kind of whenever you look at this, how you're going to describe this.
Yeah, so it is an extremely, even though it doesn't look like this extremely competitive keyword from the keyword difficulty, it kind of looks like
Yeah, it is.
medium hard. It is very, very hard. Because the pages in the top results are all, they all have vested interest in ranking for that. And you can also see from the CPC, it's like $25, which is pretty expensive. Like for us, the non-branded keywords are typically around 15, 16. That's
Mm-hmm.
already, quite expensive, quite competitive. Here it's super competitive. And the kind of problem with this keyword is that it has both transactional and educational intent or informational.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of on the one hand, there is the commercial intent of, okay, what are the best services? But Google seems to be
Mm-hmm.
favoring pages that are actually explaining everything about the process. So, all the results in SERPs are pretty long. They're explaining like what different kinds of link building services
Mm-hmm.
there are, what kind of links are the best, what kind of tactics work in 2023, which don't. So, even the sales pages of agencies are very, very
Mm-hmm.
thick in content. They're
Mm-hmm.
like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000
Yeah.
words. So it is extremely competitive. And they are all like either SEO gurus, right? Like basically, what do we have there? We have Neil Patel, we have,
Matthew Woodward is
yeah,
also very
Matthew
well.
Woodward at the very top, and it's redirecting to his SEO agency page. We have
Mm-hmm.
Brian Dean from Backlinko. We have Fat Joe agency. So all like really good domains that have been in the link building and SEO market forever. So yeah, they are probably one upping each other in terms of the links they're building to these pages, the kind of how they're optimizing the content. I had a quick look at Surf SEO and like all
Mm-hmm.
the SERPs are, above 78 pretty much in terms of
Mm-hmm.
content score. So it's all very good content with mostly very good links. Apart from these two like shady websites at the very bottom, which I think is interesting to talk about that in especially
Yeah.
in relation to link building because they have tons of links, but from relatively few domains. And when you click into the links to these bottom two, you will see that they are very, very weak. So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of indicates it's not about the number, it's about the quality and relevancy. So yeah, I think it would be
Yeah.
very difficult to squeeze into SERPs here, right? Possibly
Mm-hmm.
possibly at the bottom of the first page to kind of try to um, cut through these two domains that aren't like don't look very legit. It looks like they've been manipulating the ADR as well, and yeah, but it would be
Yeah.
very challenging.
Yeah, I just want to share something because you've been actually talking about this, about the number of, let's say, like ASO meaningful links, because we see that, right, the pages that are currently ranking at the top 10 the results, they all have quite a good number of, right,
Mm.
keywords. Oh, I'm sorry, quite a good number of referring domains. Just trying to share my screenshot and not really understanding well how to do it. Ah, kind of. Okay, let me try to do one more time because I just okay. Okay, I found it. Let me do it from here. No. Oh my gosh, it's kind of only okay. Let me try to share just entire screen just to basically show this screenshot. I hope you can see it. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, I wanted to show, right? So what I wanted to point out is basically the number of referring domains, right, that we see, and then the number of, let's say, like SEO. Oh my gosh, I kind of created such a mess over there. Sorry. Just noted that it's basically opened the portal to hell because whenever it's kind of overlap
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. Okay, let me try to share it from maybe from my notes because otherwise, okay, I'll just upload it to Drive and then share it just a little bit later. Meanwhile, Emilia, I have a question to you. Do you think, like, because you've already touched this as well, about the number of words that each page has, right? So I wonder whether, if, let's say, let's imagine you want to rank for this keyword, would you prefer to go with the content page or with the commercial page? Or maybe there is something like, you have some ideas to kind of mix things in some way. So what do you think will be more beneficial in this situation based on your experience?
Yeah, so in this case, like the top ranking results are content based. Even the commercial pages are content based. So, they are not exactly blog posts, but they are very heavy in content and covering all the different aspects of link building services. So I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely run with it. But now apparently Google is going to be considering the time to result. So I don't think like the traditional way of thinking of skyscraper technique that it means just like adding more information on top of it, and all these like SEO headings as we call them, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
someone's looking for, say, churn prevention tools, like every single post starts with what is churn, right? Like
Yeah, well, that's true.
obviously,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's for me, it's always so confusing because you look for something specific, but then you have to scroll, and sometimes the way it's written is not really in the best way, and you have to go through a lot of pages. It's so optimized content is, sometimes it's
Exactly.
creating a lot of pain for users.
Yeah, for the user. So Google is actually noticing that, and UX for the users, because Google's goal is to provide the best experience for the user. So if the user is looking for a specific answer to the specific question, right, they're going to promote the pages that deliver that answer in the most like concise and fastest way. So it may be more about information density rather than, just the number of words or content score. In this case, it's tricky because, as we said, it has kind of mixed SERP, mixed intent. So,
Yeah, because I looked through some pages. I just want to add, and there, for instance, the page from branding, it's not really talking about link building services in reality, and that is actually what makes me feel that kind of in some situations you can fool Google. So basically, even though his main keyword is link building services, he's talking about link building techniques.
exactly, yeah, and a lot of these pages are covering that as well. But then, on the other hand, Neil Patel's page is talking exclusively. It's like listing. It's a listicle, and that doesn't perform that super well. And the content
Yeah.
score in Surfer is also quite low compared to the rest of the pages.
Mm.
So it seems that this informational intent in this case is performing better on Google. So maybe people are actually like trying to wrap their heads around link building services. If I saw this keyword for the first time, I would think that people want to buy link building services. So they would be looking at, say,
Mm-hmm.
comparison tables of different service providers. But this is not the case in SERPs. So yeah, as you said, the techniques are doing pretty well. And I think Brian Dean's, yeah,
Yeah.
post, yeah, it has like the exact match URL as well. So that might still be
Yeah, it is the exact match. Okay, so finally, I've been able to actually to find the technology and share the screenshot. So you see nearby the column referring domains. Okay, I just basically added the column that identifies the number of SEO meaningful links. What do I mean here, right? The one that are coming from websites that have, let's say, like domain rating of those websites starting from 40 and organic traffic starting from 2000. So, it's quite interesting just because the number of links is kind of, the ones that are more or less bringing some traction, I would say, bringing some link juice is quite limited, I would say, especially in Nail Patel situation, right? Out of 107 links, we have only 4 that are kind of, more or less we can classify as the ones that are more or less decent. The same, by the way, about Brian Dean. So my question actually, I've been looking at this and I've been kind of thinking of the following. Maybe actually evaluate the quality of any link building agency, any link building provider by looking at the quality of their links. What do you think? Is it a fair way of doing things? I just kind of, I'm just kind of thinking of that, whether it's really the case or not.
Yeah, should I roll out? It depends. Is the right time to say?
Well, depends is good. It's good one actually. But okay, let me rephrase this. If you basically, because we know that you kind of have a lot of time limitations, right? So you can't really do that. But if you were having some time, would you kind of consider this as a way of evaluating potential link building vendors?
I would, and I do. I actually have.
Interesting.
I have decided to hire 2 agencies instead of one. One is significantly more expensive than the other, and I hired it because it allowed me to control the quality, and it allowed me to build links of higher quality, like significantly higher than the other agency. So I was happy to pay a few $100s extra per link, right? Just to make sure that the quality of the links to the pages that are bringing us most ROI are really, really good. And the other agency was like, we don't allow you to choose. So I'm like, okay, then I don't allow you to build links to my top pages. In this situation,
okay.
Yeah. In this situation that you've shown, there are like a lot of different variables at play. So obviously, DI is like highly manipulative. You can manipulate it. But in the case of Brian Dean or Neil Patel, we do know that these are like websites that have been around forever and have very high reputation. So that is probably helping them. But for instance, with Matthew Woodward, I looked at his links. And even though he has, well, let's say relatively few SEO important links, as you put it, I mean, he still has more than these like 2 SEO gurus that we mentioned. But some of these links are really, really strong. So he has an edu link from Yale, for instance. And that as well can, sway the scales in his favor. So I feel like it's an extremely complex landscape, right? Where you're evaluating the quality of the links based on a lot of different factors as well. And the quality of the specific page, not just the domain that is linking from you, but the page and also the page relevancy. And then there is the domain relevancy. And, like very, very, very few link building services are doing that because it's not scalable. But in the ideal world, I would like a super relevant page and a super relevant domain with a high DR. So I can like cover all the bases. That would be like an expensive link.
Yeah, ticking all the possible boxes. I know.
Like,
yeah, well, in the ideal world, one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I just, it really depends. I just want to ask you about the last more like question, like, to wrap up this conversation. What will be maybe your number one tip when it comes to approaching competitive search engine results, right? Or maybe you can, there is one workaround that you can suggest, right, to our listeners, or anything else that you might have in mind.
Yeah, I think it will sound very cliche, but you really need to think how you can provide more value than your competitors, even in the SERPs here for link building services. Like one factor that we haven't discussed, for instance, and that has probably contributed to the position of some of the results is recency. That some of the pages on the first page like haven't been updated since 2021, and that has probably deranked them, because you could see that Brian Dean was actually quite higher, but he hasn't updated the page at all since 2021, so it started dropping. And that is very important, and especially in SaaS. I mean, it's depressing for me because the landscape changes so quickly. I was working on one comparison page in February, and I was working on one of the competitors' pricing, like comparison and la-di-da. And I just before our call, I was revisiting it. And I noticed that the pricing has changed already, because of course it does. So it's playing whack-a-mole. Like in our industry, as soon as we update our content, and we upgrade it, not just update it. So it's not just about changing the date. If you're thinking you're going to game SEO and game Google,
no, changing the date is a horrible practice. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Only republish when you're really republishing. But when we have torn the article apart and we have basically rewritten it, we've added interactive elements like comparison tables, like maybe some videos, etc., then we are pretty much republishing it, and that tends to help us. But our competitors are not sleeping on it, and they typically do the same thing right after we have done that. So it's an endless game of whack-a-mole, but ultimately really not cutting corners and doing a good job apart from building links to maintain the highest content quality possible. That's, my take. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, I kind of, I couldn't agree more with this, just because, it doesn't matter how great your links are, right? How you might be capable of building, links, the best of the best links. But if your pages are not really, the best of the best, then you what you are going to do, those links will be kind of closing not only the gap that you have in terms of, right, between you and your competitors, so basically link gap, but also will be working to close the gap on your content side, which I think eventually might lead to very disappointing results, just because Google constantly evaluating, right, the search engine results, and at some point, if you're going to build, a very, I wouldn't say fake, but it's kind of a misleading image of your page with the help of links, then at some point it might be uncovered, and then it's very hard to clean up this mess. So you'd better think twice. Because those links, they will be devalued. That is the problem. So you're going to lose everything at the end of the day.
Most definitely. And then there are the UX issues, right? So if you don't fix your, say, time to first byte, so actually the users can see the content when they land on the page and not wait for it to load and then bounce, then what's the point in investing in links? So totally. Exactly. Links help, and they should be high quality, and they should be relevant and natural. But
they are not everything.
It's synergy.
Yeah, exactly. That is. Thank you very much, Emilia. Before saying bye, I just wanna, the team prepared a small gift to you. So if Anton can share the image with us. So here you go. Maria will send the image to you as well. So we really thank you for being with us. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Do you like it? So may I ask you, just because it was quite an effort. Maria was messaging me, asking me whether I like it, and so on.
Yeah,
So,
thanks. I think I should have T-shirt for our webinars or something like that printed on it.
okay, lovely.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Maria,
much, Emilia.
and
Thank you
thank
very
you,
much for
Alex.
being with us. Our pleasure, and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah,
Thank
likewise.
you.
Take care. Bye.
Likewise. Thank you. Bye bye.